I'm dancing, I'm dancing!
Octodad is a hard game to classify. Its humble beginnings as a project for the Independent Games Festival would imply that it is an indie game, but the massive response to Dadliest catch on Steam Greenlight and during its release has shot it into the clouds of success. Octodad Dadliest Catch is the second game in the Octodad series, the first to receive a commercial publication, and an odd game in its entirety. But, as always, we're more interested in a single question. Is it any good? The premise of Octodad is almost as ridiculous as it is comic. Our fatherly cephalopod just wants to live a normal life with his wife and 2 children, being the absolute best father that he can be. Life is never so simple, and he quickly finds out that many of his regular everyday tasks are going to take a turn for the worst, with the ever-persistent chef, who has an obsession with turning our hero into half-price sushi rolls, intervening. It's almost Disney-like, and tugs at the heartstrings with its loving family moments and punches the funny bone with its mechanics. Octodad's gameplay is focused around a very simple concept: complete regular chores and activities while controlling an octopus disguised as a human. To do this, players are given 2 methods of control over the adorably disguised father, one scheme that allows for movement of the legs, and one that allows for control of the arms. Using these powers, players are then tasked with fulfilling their fatherly role, providing for their young family, and ultimately proving to be the best father in the entire world. Which leads to the first problem that Octodad really has. The control scheme, while incredibly simple, lacks any real precision. Movement feels jerky and unreliable, which, while that's the way it's supposed to be, leads to tasks, especially the stealth and platforming sections later in the game, being frustrating. While I understand that a large part of the comedic value of the game comes from the silliness involved in trying to navigate each location, it only remains humorous the first few times you fail at a given task, with each repetition becoming more and more infuriating. Hybrid chuckle sighs really quickly become growls of anger. Of course, the goal of being the best father in the known universe is rather lofty, as our hero constantly reminds us of his deepest, darkest secret: the fact that he is an 8-legged sea dweller. This brings us to the primary opposing force that players will find in the game, which is denoted as suspicion. Suspicion is gained as players egregiously slam into pedestrians or commit other unusual acts while in the sight range of other people. Filling the bar will cause the player to have to reload their last achieved checkpoint with an audible sigh of frustration. And that's really all there is to Octodad. Like I said, the gameplay mechanics are remarkably simple. Hell, the entire game is incredibly simple. Unfortunately, the biggest issue also stems from this inherent simplicity. Octodad, in its most shining moments, understands that its biggest strength is the juxtaposition of his cute, lovable home family and his interactions with them, and the crazed, warbling movement when players take over. It creates a relatable story of a father just trying to get by, despite the huge barriers placed between him and those he loves, and allows for players to create their own hilarious tumbles while trying to complete tasks as simple as retrieving a bottle of soda for his son. At its worst, on the other hand, Octodad attempts to bridge the gap between physics-based movement gameplay and more traditional game-style mechanics by throwing in platforming puzzles and sneaking sections, which clash rather awfully with the rest of the tasks placed before you. I suppose it assumed that at some point along the journey I got significantly better at controlling our suction cup companion, and that on a whim I could make him breakdance and fence at the same time. Octodad does manage to save a little bit of face with the inclusion of local multiplayer. In multiplayer, each player takes control of a set of limbs. The roulette mode will even randomly swap what limbs each player controls after a time. Tossing 2 players into the mix to control one unfortunate Octodad has hilarious consequences, and can form a truly magical bond of combined minds, or a devastating competition as one player tries to outmaneuver the other. I guess, in the end, it felt as if Octodad Dadliest Catch started off splendidly, retaining its simplistic goals, conflicts, and idyllic family appeal. But as it approached terminal velocity, it turned towards being more gamey, which did more harm than good. It certainly is worth the time if you want a few laughs or have extra cash lying around, but I wouldn't go out of my way to try and play it immediately. Octodad Dadliest Catch from Young Horses gets a 7 out of 10 and is available on Steam now for $14.99 or your regional equivalent. Until next time, stay awesome and cheers.
Man with the 3-piece suit.